The millionaire, in disguise, visited his own store, but discovered the manager humiliating his black cashier. That morning, William Bradley decided to slip away from the sprawling mansion perched on the verdant hills of Buckhead, one of Atlanta's most exclusive neighborhoods. He stepped out quietly, careful not to awaken his longtime chauffeur. Today, he didn't want the gleaming black Bentley or his customary tailored suit. Instead, he pulled on a well-worn hoodie, a faded baseball cap, and a pair of ordinary sunglasses he'd bought years ago. His appearance was so unassuming that anyone who saw him would never guess he was the powerful CEO who had built the renowned Freshway Market supermarket chain from the ground up. William rarely went undercover like this, but lately his inbox had been flooded with anonymous letters and angry emails from one of his Atlanta branches, accusing the store of mistreating employees and, in particular, of racial discrimination. At first, he was skeptical, but as the volume of complaints grew, each one more desperate than the last, he knew he could no longer ignore them. So that morning, he resolved to go there himself. He wanted to see firsthand what was happening at the company he'd nurtured with his own two hands, and why his employees were supposedly suffering. He set out in a battered Toyota borrowed from the gardener, winding quietly through Atlanta's bustling streets amid the morning rush. It was still early. The gentle dawn light filtered through the leafy canopy, bouncing off the dew-damp pavement. William kept his face calm, but inside he was uneasy. If the allegations were true, what could he do? How could he not only address the immediate problem, but also root out this toxic prejudice at its core? The car came to a stop in the broad parking lot outside the Freshway Markets on a busy corner. William killed the engine and sat for a moment, surveying the scene. From the outside, everything looked normal. Shoppers moving in and out, employees busy at work. He wondered if the complaints had been exaggerated, but he knew that sometimes you can't see the truth until you're up close. He took a deep breath, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. The cool air, scented with fresh fruit and newly baked bread, enveloped him. He grabbed a red shopping cart and began to wander the aisles, pretending to look for items. No one gave him a second glance. No one would notice a casually dressed middle-aged man who looked a little rumpled. As he neared the checkout area, things came into focus. From a distance, William spotted a young black cashier at register number 4. Her smooth brown skin and neatly tied curls framed a beautiful face, but her red-rimmed eyes and weary expression spoke of deep sadness. He edged closer with his cart, careful not to draw attention. She forced a weak smile for each customer, but it barely concealed the anguish behind it. Her hands trembled slightly as she scanned items, as though she feared something unseen. William felt his heart tighten. He'd grown up in Atlanta's tougher neighborhoods and had watched his own mother work long hours at a checkout just like this to support the family. He understood all too well the strain of this job. Before he could reflect further, a white man in a gray suit and red striped tie stormed out from behind the counter. Ice blue eyes blazing, he leaned in so close to the cashier that William could see the contempt etched on his face. This was Tom Reynolds, the store manager who'd been repeatedly accused in those emails of spewing racist slurs and verbally abusing his staff. "Here you go again?" Tom snapped. "How many times do I have to tell you? No one can stand your sloppy work. I don't get why the company keeps hiring worthless people like you. Just get it together." His harsh words cut through the hum of the store. A few customers shot dirty looks, but nobody dared speak up. Jasmine, the cashier, bowed her head and whispered something too soft for anyone but Tom to hear. William noticed her grip tightening on the scanner, her shoulders trembling as unshed tears threatened to spill. In that moment, William's blood boiled. This wasn't merely workplace pressure, it was open humiliation. bigotry flaunted in front of everyone. The complaints in his inbox were no longer abstract. They were unfolding right before his eyes, as stark and disturbing as he'd feared. He gripped the handle of his cart, his mind racing through the next steps. There was no turning back now. He would expose this injustice and put an end to the discrimination poisoning his beloved Freshway markets. No one recognized that the unremarkable man standing there amid the crowd was William Bradley, the most powerful owner of the very store they shopped in. And no one could have guessed that what happened next would change the fate of this store forever. William Bradley stood perfectly still, gripping the handle of his shopping cart, his eyes fixed on every small movement of the young woman at register number 4. The name tag on her uniform read, Jasmine Bennett. With trembling hands, she continued scanning items, each beep of the scanner seemingly requiring all her effort just to keep her composure from completely shattering. From his vantage point, William could see the fear etched in Jasmine's eyes. They weren't just red and tired. They were trying desperately to hide an even deeper pain. Though she fought to hold back her tears, occasional drops still escaped, tracing dark streaks across her pale blue uniform shirt. She dared not lift her gaze, as if she believed that looking anyone in the eye would unleash a flood of sobs she couldn't control. A strange sorrow welled up in William's chest. Jasmine reminded him so much of his late mother, who had once done the same job, enduring endless pressure yet never daring to complain. He'd watched his mom face impatient customers and callous managers with that same look of helpless resilience he now saw in Jasmine. Lost in thought, William was jolted back to reality by a cold, threatening voice. He turned and saw a tall white man in an expensive suit striding toward Jasmine, every step radiating arrogance. This was Tom Reynolds, the store manager whose bigoted emails had triggered William's visit. But seeing him in person, William now felt the manager's cruelty like a physical force. Tom stopped inches from Jasmine, close enough that a harsh breath could knock her off balance. His icy features twisted into a mocking smile as he finally spoke. "Back again, Jasmine? How many times must I tell you? Do you even understand the simplest tasks? Are you too stupid to get it right?" Tom's words cut through the store like a razor. Jasmine froze, her breathing ragged, shoulders trembling. She tried to speak, but no sound came, only tears pooling at the corners of her eyes and spilling onto the floor. Stepping even closer, he yanked the register screen and sneered, "Blame the machine, huh? System glitch? I don't care. Do you know why you're here, Jasmine? Because company policy forces me to hire people like you, people I'd have fired on the spot if I had the choice, but I'm stuck with your useless self." His cruelty crossed every line. William could feel the racism in Tom's words poisoning the air. Nearby customers exchanged uneasy glances, but dared not intervene. Jasmine remained silent, her knuckles white around the edge of the counter. After a tortured moment, she whispered, I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds. I'll be more careful." Tom let out a cold, mocking laugh and swept a contemptuous gaze over her. "Sorry? You think an apology fixes this? Honestly, Jasmine, if you weren't black and a so-called protected hire to avoid bad publicity, you'd have been shown the door long ago." William's anger surged. He took a cautious step forward, but forced himself to remain calm, knowing that now was not the time to reveal himself. He needed to document the full extent of this abuse to make his case undeniable. The store felt suffocatingly silent. Tom glanced around, satisfied that no one would challenge him. Then, turning to leave, he tossed one last barb over his shoulder. "This is your final warning, Jasmine. Don't let me see this crap again if you want to keep this job you don't deserve." With that, he strode away, triumphant. Jasmine stood rooted to the spot, shoulders shaking, tears falling onto the cold tile at her feet. William Bradley clenched his phone in his hand. He knew what he had to do, and that this moment would fuel his resolve to ensure Jasmine and every other employee at Freshway Markets would never endure this again. Silently, he vowed to himself, "Hang in there, Jasmine. You won't have to face this alone for much longer." From behind his shopping cart, William Bradley remained silent, but every muscle in his face tensed as his gaze locked onto Jasmine Bennett, trembling at register number 4. He had never witnessed anything more agonizing. The young woman, barely regaining her composure after Tom Reynolds' first volley of insults, was now caught in an even fiercer storm of words. Seconds after Tom turned his back and walked away, Jasmine took a deep breath and tried to resume her work. But as she scanned the barcode on a box of cereal, the scanner let out a stuttering beep, its screen flickering wildly before going dark. Jasmine panicked and frantically hit the restart button, desperately trying to fix the glitch. Before she could even think, Tom Reynolds' irritated voice rang out right beside her, sharper and more cutting than before. "What the hell are you doing now? You can't even handle the simplest task of scanning items properly?" Tom loomed over her, his voice loud enough to draw every waiting customer's attention. Some glanced at Jasmine with sympathy, others with curiosity, but most looked away in discomfort. In a panic, she stammered her explanation, voice shaking but earnest. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm so sorry. The system just crashed. I'm trying to fix it right now." Before she could finish, Tom cut her off brutally. "A system crash? Or is it you crashing again? Don't think I don't know who you are, Jasmine, always making excuses to dodge responsibility." His words dripped with prejudice, each insult veiled in thinly disguised contempt. Anger flushed his face, and his eyes gleamed with vicious satisfaction. He stepped even closer, his tone icy and deliberate. "I've told corporate multiple times, people like you only cause problems for this store. The company insists on hiring useless hires for the sake of diversity. What a joke. If it weren't for that ridiculous policy, someone like you wouldn't be allowed in my store." Each barb struck Jasmine like a knife. Her hands shook uncontrollably, and the scanner tumbled to the cold floor with a hollow clack. She bent to pick it up, but that only seemed to infuriate Tom more. "See that? You can't even hold a simple piece of equipment. I can't fathom how your parents raised you. Maybe they didn't bother teaching you anything at all, right?" William Bradley's grip on his phone whitened at the knuckles. His fury peaked, but he forced himself to stay calm. He quietly raised the phone and began recording every moment. He knew that only concrete evidence could uproot this grave injustice. Jasmine froze, eyes wide with fear and pain, tears streaming down her cheeks though she fought to hold back her sobs. The surrounding customers shifted uneasily. Everyone sensed the cruelty unfolding, yet nobody dared to speak up. Their fearful silence only emboldened Tom Reynolds' brutality. He looked around, wearing a triumphant sneer, then turned back to Jasmine, his voice dropping to a colder, more venomous edge. "Listen carefully, Jasmine Bennett. This is your one and only warning. If you make the slightest mistake again, not even that pathetic diversity policy will save you. People like you belong on the streets, doing menial work, not standing behind my register." Jasmine trembled at his words, her eyes reflecting both agony and utter despair. In that moment, she seemed on the brink of collapse. William felt his heart wrench seeing her struggle just to stand. He continued recording, capturing every hateful word and every cruel expression on Tom's face in vivid detail. William understood he held the power to change everything. Not just Jasmine's fate, but the future of this Freshway Market store, and every employee forced to live in fear. Yet he also knew it wasn't time to reveal himself. He had to be patient, let the full truth come to light. William silently vowed that when the moment was right, he would ensure that no one at Freshway Markets would ever endure such injustice again. For him, no excuse could ever justify stripping a person of their dignity and self-respect. And one day soon, Tom Reynolds would answer for every word and every action he had inflicted on Jasmine Bennett today. The moment Tom Reynolds finished speaking, the entire Freshway Markets fell into a stifling silence. The air seemed to freeze. Every customer and employee stood still, pretending they hadn't just witnessed that scene. William Bradley felt the weight of that silence pressing in on him. His eyes discreetly swept over the nearby staff, hoping to find someone brave enough to step forward for Jasmine Bennett. But all he saw were downcast gazes and bowed heads. The employees at the adjacent registers kept their heads low, fumbling at their work as if to feign busyness. A young woman at Register 5 hastily turned away, pretending to straighten candy boxes that were already perfectly aligned. A male clerk farther back silently stared at the floor, as though any eye contact might implicate him. No one dared approach Jasmine. No one dared challenge Tom Reynolds' brazen cruelty. William understood perfectly why. It wasn't callousness so much as desperate helplessness. Those employees knew that if they spoke out, they could suffer the same fate as Jasmine, lose their jobs, endure public humiliation. So they remained silent, and that silence only fueled Tom's dominance. As William pondered what to do next, a small, indignant voice whispered at his elbow. Startled, he turned to see an older black man standing just behind him in line. His name tag read James Howard. His weathered face and salt-and-pepper hair told of years of hard experience, and his tired yet keen eyes brimmed with things left unsaid. Speaking barely above a whisper, but loud enough for William to hear, he said, "This happens too often, and nobody dares speak up because they're afraid of losing their jobs. That poor girl." William met James Howard's gaze and nodded in understanding. But before William could respond, his attention snapped back to Jasmine. By now, Jasmine Bennett was utterly shattered. She bent forward, covering her flushed face with trembling hands. Her thin shoulders shook with silent sobs. There were no loud cries, no dramatic outburst, yet her quiet grief cut William's heart like a knife. He realized Jasmine wasn't crying from anger or simple embarrassment. She was crying from total helplessness, trapped in a corner with no escape. He knew the awful questions racing through her mind. What did I do wrong? Why am I being treated like this? Does anyone care about me? Meanwhile, Tom Reynolds stood a short distance away, arms crossed, watching Jasmine's every move with triumphant satisfaction. The collective fear and silence of the customers and staff only emboldened him. He even gave a cold, mocking smile, as if Jasmine's agony proved the absolute power he wielded here. In a fleeting moment, Tom's gaze locked with William's. Unaware of William's true identity, Tom returned the look with a challenge, an assertion of his total control over this store. William grit his teeth, fury rising like a volcano ready to erupt. Yet he forced himself to remain calm, kept recording secretly, and waited for the right moment. James Howard stayed by William's side, his face growing more frustrated and angry by the second. He shook his head bitterly and whispered, "I thought the world had moved forward, but here nothing's changed." William saw the deep disappointment in James's eyes, the sorrow of a man who's witnessed a lifetime of injustice yet still believed things could improve. And now, here was undeniable proof before him. Nothing had really changed. From behind the register, Jasmine finally lifted her head a little. Her eyes were swollen and red, tears still streaking down her cheeks. She blinked, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and tried to steady herself to keep working, but every movement spoke of pain and despair. William noticed the pitying and curious glances from the customers, but no one did more than look. In that moment, William felt his responsibility more keenly than ever. He knew he could no longer stand by, but he also knew the truth needed time and evidence to emerge fully. He silently vowed that this would be the last time any employee in his company would endure such injustice and abuse. Clutching his phone, with the recording safely captured, he resolved, "Jasmine, I promise you, this terrible silence ends here." An oppressive silence still filled the Freshway Market store, but like a dormant volcano waiting to erupt, it could not hold much longer. Tom Reynolds, chest tight with icy arrogance, seemed unsatisfied with the damage he'd already inflicted on Jasmine. His eyes flickered with something more than anger, a deep, unfounded fury he made no effort to hide, as if Jasmine's mere presence was enough to throw him off balance. Jasmine Bennett, desperately trying to stay composed, continued to fiddle with the barcode scanner in her hands. Her fingers shook so badly that every movement was clumsy, her mind clouded by fear and pain. When the scanner let out another stuttering beep, that tiny glitch became the final straw. Tom's rage exploded. Without a word, Tom lunged forward, snatching the scanner from Jasmine's trembling grip. The sudden, rough action sent her stumbling back, eyes wide with panic. He held the device aloft like a weapon, his voice cutting through the stunned hush of the store. "Enough! You are completely useless if you can't even handle this simple machine. I can't tolerate this one more second. Jasmine Bennett, you're fired. Get out of my store right now." His steely declaration rang through the aisles like a merciless verdict. Jasmine froze, her body convulsing with silent sobs as tears streamed unchecked down her cheeks. Her lips quivered as she tried to form words, but only silence emerged. Around them, customers recoiled in shock, yet no one dared approach. Whispers rippled through the crowd, looks of outrage mixed with fear, but nobody had the courage to stand up to Tom's brazen display of power. He swept his gaze over them, as though daring anyone to challenge him, then added loudly, "Anyone else want to defend her? Let me be clear, there's no place here for lazy incompetents, especially those who expect special treatment just because of their skin color." Every word dripped with blatant racism, uttered right in front of witnesses. A few patrons shook their heads in disgust, but spoke only in hushed tones. The tension in the store was taut as a drawn bowstring, ready to snap. From his hidden spot, William Bradley felt he couldn't stay silent any longer. His heart thundered in his chest as he tightened his grip on the phone, holding his damning evidence. He knew that with just a few more steps he'd reveal himself, but he also knew there was no other choice. He rose and began to move forward, each stride heavy with the gravity of the truth he was determined to expose. In his mind, he replayed Jasmine's anguish, the other employees' defeated expressions, and the quiet outrage in James Howard's eyes. The elderly black man who'd stood beside him moments before, yearning for justice. Tom Reynolds remained oblivious, still basking in the cruel power he'd wielded. Jasmine stood frozen, tears still flowing, her world shattered around her. She had no thought of what to do next, only the raw ache of humiliation and despair. William closed the distance, forcing his face to remain calm even as his pulse raced. Now, barely a few yards from Tom, he glanced at Jasmine, a silent promise in his eyes that her isolation and humiliation would end. He drew a deep breath, knowing the next moment would be a turning point, not just for Jasmine Bennett, but for the entire Freshway Markets family. And in his mind he whispered one final vow. It's time to put an end to all of this. At that moment, amid the pin-drop silence enveloping the store, William Bradley's measured yet resolute footsteps rang out clearly on the gleaming tile floor. Each step sounded like the powerful heartbeat of justice approaching, slowly breaking through Tom Reynolds's cold, haughty facade of authority. Tom still hadn't realized who the man advancing toward him was. To his eyes, William appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary middle-aged man in a worn hoodie and dark sunglasses. With a sneer of contempt, Tom whipped around to face him, his gaze icy and disdainful. "What's the matter, old man? If you're planning to play hero here, I suggest you think twice. Best mind your own business." William didn't respond at once. Instead, he slowly removed his sunglasses, revealing eyes sharp with determination. The air around them seemed to freeze under the weight of his seriousness. Silently, William raised his phone and played the video he'd secretly recorded from start to finish. "I think you ought to watch this footage before you say another word, Mr. Reynolds." Tom glanced at the screen. His expression shifted from arrogance to confusion, then quickly to an anger-fueled defiance. But instead of remorse, his aggression escalated. He straightened his posture and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "So what? It's just proof of the truth. I haven't done anything wrong. Employees like Jasmine don't belong in this store. I'm just doing my job, keeping things efficient, not letting that equality nonsense get in the way." He sneered at Jasmine Bennett, who stood frozen, trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks. Tom continued, his tone mocking and unapologetic. "Look at her. All she does is cry and complain whenever she's criticized. That's why this place can't thrive. I refuse to have people like her on my team." William felt anger surge within him, but kept his voice calm and firm. "What you've just said crosses a line, Mr. Reynolds. This video captured every racist remark and every degrading action. Do you really believe such behavior will be tolerated at Freshway Markets?" Tom let out a cold, taunting laugh. "And who do you think you are to lecture me? A regular customer? Some justice crusader? Let me tell you, that video means nothing. I've worked here long enough to know no one will challenge me just because of some worthless black woman." Tension crackled through the store. Customers gaped in disbelief at Tom's brazen arrogance. Jasmine remained rooted to the spot, her grief deepening with every vicious word. Just then, a woman in a business suit pushed through the crowd. Linda Evans, the regional assistant manager overseeing this Freshway Markets location, had arrived after hearing the commotion. But she froze in astonishment at the sight of the man confronting Tom. "Mr. Bradley? William Bradley, is that really you?" At the sound of his name, the store erupted in whispers. Longtime employees who had seen the CEO's photo on the company website immediately recognized him. A ripple of stunned murmurs spread. "Oh my God, it is him, the owner of Freshway Markets, William Bradley." Tom's face went ashen, his bravado draining away. He stood motionless, shock and panic replacing his former swagger. His eyes widened, mouth agape, unable to process what was happening. William turned to Linda and gave a slight nod, confirming his identity, then faced Tom squarely and spoke with quiet authority. "Now you know who I am, Mr. Reynolds. I'm deeply disappointed in you. Freshway Markets will never tolerate racism or mistreatment of employees, especially from someone in a leadership role." In that packed store, Tom Reynolds had lost every shred of confidence. Confronted by William Bradley's stern, disappointed gaze, he realized that his illusory power was gone. This was the moment of reckoning William had waited for. But he knew it was only the beginning of a longer fight, one he was determined to carry through to protect the justice and dignity of employees like Jasmine Bennett. The moment the name William Bradley rang out clearly across the Freshway Market store, every head turned toward the unassuming man in the worn hoodie who had just stepped up to confront Tom Reynolds. Murmurs and whispers swelled like a rising tide, rippling through the aisles in shock and disbelief. Longtime staff, who'd heard of the powerful CEO but never met him in person, looked on with a mix of astonishment and nervous excitement. Tom Reynolds froze, his body stiff as stone. His smug arrogance melted away, leaving only panic etched on his pale face. He managed a trembling, halting apology. "Mr. Bradley, I really didn't recognize you. I was just following company policy. I never meant to offend anyone." His plea sounded pitiful, almost pleading for sympathy, but William Bradley cut him off with a single, icy glance. Standing perfectly still, he spoke with calm authority that echoed through the store. "Company policy, Mr. Reynolds? What policy justifies the hateful, discriminatory things you said to Jasmine Bennett and other employees? I've stood here long enough to see exactly how you treat your staff. Your words have crossed every line, both ethically and legally, that Freshway Market stands for." Silence tightened further. Employees and customers alike held their breath as the company's highest authority spoke. Behind the register, Jasmine lifted her tear-streaked face to meet William's eyes, surprised, moved, and filled with hope. For the first time after months of pain and humiliation, she dared to believe justice might finally prevail. Tom's panic deepened. He raised shaking hands as if to calm himself, then stammered a weak defense. "Mr. Bradley, please understand, I only wanted to maintain discipline. Ms. Bennett makes mistakes all the time. It wasn't about race, I swear it wasn't." William shook his head slowly but firmly, his voice unwavering. "Mr. Reynolds, your feeble excuses only prove you don't grasp the severity of your actions. What I witnessed and recorded on video was not discipline. It was blatant racial discrimination and callous abuse of power." Tom bowed his head, realizing any further excuses were futile. He glanced desperately at Linda Evans, the regional assistant manager who'd just arrived, seeking her support. But Linda's expression was one of disappointment and reproach. Without a word, she stepped to William's side, making her allegiance clear. William continued, each word resonating with conviction. "I built Freshway Markets to be a place free of injustice, prejudice, and abuse. My goal has always been simple. Every employee deserves fair and respectful treatment, no matter their background, skin color, or circumstances. But you, Mr. Reynolds, have turned this store into a toxic environment, one where racism is openly tolerated and human dignity is trampled in front of customers and colleagues." He paused, sweeping his gaze over the assembled staff with a look of encouragement and reassurance, silently promising them that their fear would end now. Then he turned back to Tom Reynolds, his tone colder and sharper than ever. "I am deeply disappointed in you, Mr. Reynolds. You have not only lost my trust, you have betrayed the very values this company embodies. I assure you, today will be the last day you manage any Freshway Markets location. Your conduct will be addressed swiftly and decisively by the board." Tom stood rooted in place, shoulders slumped in despair. The swagger and aggression he wore moments ago had vanished, replaced by a pitiful figure of panic and regret. His eyes darted wildly around the store, as if silently begging for a lifeline that would never come. William offered no mercy. His mind was fixed on eradicating the cruelty and injustice that had taken root under his watch. And though today's reckoning was only the beginning, he was determined to see it through to the end. He glanced gently at Jasmine Bennett, his expression softening with genuine compassion. "From this moment on, you will never have to endure injustice or suffering alone again. I promise you, Freshway Markets will change, and it starts today." The tense atmosphere in Freshway Markets felt almost tangible after William Bradley's stern, incisive words. All eyes, customers and staff alike, were fixed on the two men facing off. The most powerful CEO of the entire supermarket chain, and Tom Reynolds, his face ashen and eyes wild with panic, struggling to justify his wrongdoing. After a stunned pause, Tom managed to regain a shred of composure. He took a deep breath and hurried forward, desperate to defend himself with the only argument he thought could save him. "Mr. Bradley," he blurted, his voice edged with desperation but forced confidence, "I understand you're upset by what you saw. But please look at the bottom line. Since I took over this store, our sales have continually increased. We've hit our profit targets every month, and the store runs efficiently. Yes, I admit I'm strict with the staff sometimes, but it's all for the greater good, the growth and profitability of Freshway Markets." He leaned in, clutching at his final defense. "In fact, under my management, this store has never slipped from the top of the region. Isn't that what really matters, sir?" At that, the store fell into a heavy silence again. Everyone watched William Bradley, waiting for his response to Tom's cold, calculated justification. William met Tom's gaze for a long moment, eyes sharp and icy, as though peering into the manager's very soul. Finally, he spoke, each word crystal clear and unwavering. "Mr. Reynolds, do you truly believe that Freshway Market's core value is just revenue and profit? Do you think those numbers excuse the humiliation and racial prejudice you've inflicted?" William's voice grew more powerful, each sentence a direct appeal to Tom's conscience. "I'll be clear. The business results you brag about mean nothing if they're built on suffering, injustice, and discrimination. Freshway Markets is more than a money-making enterprise. It's a place where every human being deserves equal respect, regardless of skin color or background." William stepped forward, his eyes blazing with resolve, though his tone softened slightly. "True success isn't measured by profit margins, but by how we treat one another. Our HR policies center on respecting people. You chose to ignore that, turning this store into a breeding ground for prejudice and unfairness. What you did was not only unethical, it's unacceptable in any organization." Tom's face went pale at William's incisive rebuke. He tried again, stammering, But Mr. Bradley, you don't understand. Running a store isn't easy. I only wanted things to run more efficiently. That's why I—" William cut him off with a firm shake of his head. "No, Mr. Reynolds. What you did was an abuse of power and a gross violation of Freshway Market's fundamental values. I will never allow anyone to use their managerial position to demean others because of their skin color. That is not leadership. It's a failure of character and ethics." At that, Tom Reynolds lost all composure. Realizing the situation was hopeless, he tried to make a frantic dash for the exit, only to be blocked by two store security guards who had quietly appeared. One guard spoke firmly. "Mr. Reynolds, you cannot leave right now. Mr. Bradley has requested you stay to resolve this matter." Tom spun around, fury and shock on his face. "You dare block me? I'm the store manager here. Who gave you the right?" But the guards refused to budge, standing their ground under orders from the company's owner. Tom realized in that moment he was completely trapped by the consequences of his own actions. His arrogance shattered, replaced by utter helplessness and panic. William watched it all unfold, calmly but resolutely. He knew this was the pivotal moment to reaffirm the true values he expected Freshway Markets to uphold. He inhaled deeply, then spoke once more, this time addressing everyone who had witnessed today's events. Remember this. Everyone here, Freshway Market's greatest value is not profit, but how we protect and respect each other. I promise you, I will never allow anyone to destroy those values. The moment William Bradley's powerful declaration ended, the tense silence at Freshway Markets was shattered by the chaotic commotion of Tom Reynolds. Realizing he'd lost control, Tom thrashed about, screaming in fury and desperation, as 2 security guards approached to escort him to the back-office meeting room at William's direction. "Get your hands off me right now! You have no right to do this! I'm the store manager. I made this place successful," Tom yelled, his face flushed with anger and panic, his voice trembling in his hysteria. The guards held him firmly but gently, leading him toward the meeting room at the rear of the store. On the way, Tom continued to shout protests, his desperate cries echoing through the aisles and drawing curious, worried looks from every customer and employee. "I've dedicated my life to this store. Without me, this place is nothing. You'll regret treating me like this," he screamed again, his tone growing more irrational and frantic. But Tom's shouting no longer carried any weight. The staff, long silent in fear of his authority, now murmured among themselves. The old atmosphere of terror and obedience was evaporating, replaced by anger and bold accusations from those who had long endured Tom's behavior. A young female employee standing near Jasmine spoke up, her voice shaky but determined. I've heard him use insulting language toward us, saying people of color only drag this store down. But I was too scared of losing my job to ever speak up." Immediately, a male baker chimed in, his tone angry and resolute. "And that's not all. He's repeatedly denied advancement and training opportunities to Black and Latino employees. I asked him why once, and he just laughed, saying, 'People like us will never rise up anyway.'" Their statements opened the floodgates, prompting other staff to share specific incidents of discrimination and abuse they'd witnessed or endured under Tom Reynolds. Each story was clearer, more heartbreaking, and more infuriating than the last. William Bradley listened intently to every accusation, his expression stern yet empathetic. He understood now more than ever that Tom's actions weren't isolated incidents, but part of a systemic culture of prejudice and injustice deeply rooted in this store. Taking a deep breath, William addressed the assembled employees and customers, his voice serious but filled with genuine emotion. "Thank you all for your courage in speaking up. I promise you that Mr. Reynolds' words and actions today, along with the incidents you've just shared, will be investigated thoroughly and fairly. From this moment on, Freshway Markets will never tolerate racism or unfair treatment again." His sincere and powerful words lifted the mood slightly, as if a new hope had just been sparked amid the long burning pain. From inside the meeting room, Tom Reynolds' muffled screams could still be heard, fading now, powerless in the face of his own downfall. William then signaled to Linda Evans, the regional assistant manager, instructing her to launch a comprehensive investigation across not only this store, but the entire Freshway Markets chain. "Linda, contact HR and the regional store managers immediately. I want a full-scale inquiry to ensure that misconduct like this never happens again," he said firmly. Linda nodded without hesitation, her resolve clear. "Yes, Mr. Bradley, I'll get started right away. I guarantee nothing will be overlooked." As Linda hurried off to carry out his instructions, William turned to Jasmine Bennett, who still stood quietly, her tears dried but her eyes red-rimmed. His gaze was softer than ever, radiating comfort and encouragement. Jasmine, I'm so sorry for what you've endured, but I promise you, today will be the last day you suffer injustice here. I will do everything in my power to protect you and every other employee's rights and dignity." Jasmine met his eyes, and a single tear slid down her cheek, this time a tear of gratitude and hope. She managed a small smile, the first in many long, painful days, and felt a surge of confidence that from today forward things would truly be different. Standing in the center of the store, William Bradley felt a powerful determination filling him. Freshway Markets would change, for real, and it would start with the bitter but necessary fall of Tom Reynolds today. As Linda Evans departed to launch the internal investigations, the atmosphere at Freshway Markets began to soften. The earlier clamor faded away, replaced by a deep, gentle silence filled with sympathy and a budding sense of hope. William Bradley stepped quietly over to Jasmine Bennett, who still stood motionless by the register. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but no longer filled with panic or despair. Instead, there was a weary relief in her gaze now that the truth had finally come to light. William spoke softly, his tone warm and sincere. "Jasmine, I want you to know how deeply sorry and pained I am for everything you've endured. Mr. Reynolds' words and actions should never have happened here, or anywhere." Jasmine lifted her eyes, tears welling once more. This time, tears of profound gratitude. Her voice trembled but rang clear. "Thank you, Mr. Bradley. Thank you so much. I used to think no one could ever understand what I went through here. There were days I didn't even want to come into work, because each shift felt like another blow to what little dignity I had left." She paused to take a steadying breath, her voice growing stronger as she continued. "What Mr. Reynolds said today wasn't the first time. I and several others have long been subjected to hateful comments, condescending looks, and unfair treatment. But we stayed silent out of fear for our jobs, out of concern for our families." William listened quietly, every word like a blade cutting through his heart. He knew Freshway Markets was his pride and joy, a company founded on respect and fairness, but Jasmine's testimony revealed the hidden pain and injustice beneath the surface. Jasmine pressed on, her voice full of emotion yet resolute. "I've worked so hard to prove myself, but no matter how well I performed, I was always treated as if I were inferior. There were moments I questioned myself, wondering if what he said was true, that I didn't deserve to stand here simply because of the color of my skin." William shook his head firmly, his voice ringing with conviction. "No, Jasmine, you never deserved to feel that way. What Mr. Reynolds said was completely wrong. A person's worth is never measured by their skin color or background. You have shown courage, perseverance, and remarkable strength in the face of the harshest circumstances. I promise you, from this moment on, no one will ever take your dignity or self-respect away again." Jasmine looked up at him, her eyes now shining with genuine gratitude and hope. For the first time in months, she felt a true ally in someone with real authority. William placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, a gesture of support that came straight from his heart. "I truly admire you, Jasmine. Not everyone can endure such treatment with the grace and dignity you've shown. I believe Freshway Markets needs more people like you, people who stand strong in adversity while maintaining their self-respect and kindness." He paused, his voice warming even further. "I will not only root out these negative issues, but also ensure you receive the recognition you deserve for your skill and bravery. Jasmine, I'm officially promoting you to lead checkout supervisor, effective today. Additionally, the company will cover any counseling or support services you need to heal from what you've experienced." Jasmine's eyes widened in astonishment. She could hardly believe what she was hearing. A warm glow spread through her, a mix of gratitude, relief, and renewed belief in a brighter future. I don't know how to thank you, Mr. Bradley," she said, voice trembling with emotion. "But I promise you, I will not let you down." William smiled genuinely and nodded. "I have complete faith in you, Jasmine. I know you will excel in your new role. And remember, going forward, you are never alone. This company and I personally will always stand by you to protect your rights and dignity." His heartfelt words gave Jasmine fresh strength. She straightened her posture, a radiant smile breaking across her face, tears of gratitude still glistening in her eyes. In that moment, William Bradley knew he had done the right thing. His actions today would not only transform Jasmine Bennett's life, but also mark the first step in restoring the true values Freshway Markets was built upon: fairness, respect, and the inherent dignity of every person. That morning, William Bradley left his luxurious mansion feeling thoughtful and anxious. He couldn't have imagined that, just a few hours later, his secret decision to go incognito at the Freshway Markets in Atlanta would become a pivotal turning point, ushering in a new chapter for the entire company. After the shocking incident at that store, William realized that racism and discrimination weren't merely isolated to Tom Reynolds. They were warning signs of a much larger problem lurking within Freshway Markets management and operations, an issue long ignored, and one he now knew he had to confront head-on. Within days, William convened an urgent meeting of Freshway Markets' senior leadership. In that tense but necessary session, he made his position clear. "What happened at our Atlanta store is a wake-up call that we need immediate change. We cannot, and will not, tolerate any form of racism or injustice at Freshway Markets." He inhaled deeply, looking each leadership member in the eye. "Effective today, I'm launching a comprehensive reform program to combat all discrimination. We will establish a secure, confidential reporting channel so employees can speak up without fear." The room fell into solemn resolve. William went on, "Anyone, regardless of title or rank, found guilty of racial bias or discriminatory behavior will face severe consequences. Remember, our profits will never outweigh the dignity and respect we owe our employees." After the meeting, the Respect for All initiative rolled out company-wide. Posters, internal bulletins, and specialized training sessions launched immediately. From executives to frontline cashiers, everyone was mandated to attend new anti-bias and inclusion workshops. One of William's first concrete measures was a secure hotline, ensuring staff could report misconduct anonymously without fear of retaliation. He also formed an independent committee tasked with receiving, investigating, and resolving all complaints of racism or unfair treatment. Within days, employees at other branches began to speak out. Their stories, long kept in the shadows, emerged, isolated at first, then swelling into a powerful wave that underscored the urgency of William's reforms. Marcus Johnson, a 5-year veteran at the New York branch, shared, "I've seen colleagues passed over for promotions solely because of their skin color. I was too afraid to speak up before, but when I saw our CEO stand up for justice, I knew I had to be heard." Similar accounts poured in, each one adding another brick to the foundation of transparency and change William was building. It became clear Freshway Markets was undergoing a genuine transformation. Meanwhile, news of William's decisive action in Atlanta spread rapidly on social media. A customer who witnessed him defending Jasmine Bennett posted the video online, and it went viral, racking up millions of views, comments, and shares. Online, William Bradley was hailed as a model leader who dared to defend his employees' dignity and ethics, even at the expense of confronting a subordinate manager in public. Respect for all trended worldwide, embraced by celebrities and human rights organizations alike. Seeing the movement swell, William felt the weight of his responsibility more keenly than ever. He resolved not merely to address isolated incidents, but to forge a new corporate culture rooted in absolute fairness and respect. He took to the press, stating firmly, "I want Freshway Markets to be a beacon of diversity, equality, and human dignity. Not one of our employees should fear discrimination. This isn't a slogan. It's a solemn vow I intend to keep." At the same time, employees like Jasmine Bennett, once broken by prejudice, found new confidence in speaking out, knowing they now had the unwavering support of their company and its highest leader. William's bold transparency sparked a fresh wave of optimism at Freshway Markets. The previous atmosphere of anxiety gave way to smiles and renewed faith in a brighter future. Standing by his office window, gazing out at the city, William thought to himself, "This journey won't be easy, but I will never stop. For justice, for dignity, and for every person's worth, I will see this through to the end." Since the Respect for All campaign was launched in earnest, Freshway Markets was no longer the same company Jasmine once knew. The young woman who used to stand trembling, tears streaming down her cheeks behind the register, had become a living symbol of profound change, a testament to the company's commitment to fairness and human dignity. After William Bradley's decisive intervention, Jasmine Bennett was promoted to lead checkout supervisor, a role that matched her competence and the courage she'd shown. No longer haunted by sneers or hateful remarks, she now walked into the store with confidence and pride, knowing she had overcome her painful past. Every morning, Jasmine arrived a little earlier than everyone else. She would stand at the entrance, greeting each employee and customer with her warmest, brightest smile. In time, her kindness won everyone's admiration and respect. Younger staff looked up to her as an older sister, someone always ready to listen and help, especially when they faced sensitive issues like racism or workplace injustice. But Jasmine didn't stop at management. Fully aware of her responsibility after what she'd endured, she threw herself into anti-racism campaigns, not just within the company but across the wider community. She believed her own story, with all its scars and her journey to reclaim her self-worth, could inspire anyone who had faced or was facing similar circumstances. And she was right. Within weeks of sharing her story through media appearances and social platforms, Jasmine received thousands of messages from across the country, heartfelt thanks, and deep admiration from people who had suffered similar prejudice but never dared to speak up. One afternoon, she was invited to a prominent Atlanta TV station to share her experiences. In front of the camera, poised and self-assured, she recounted the darkest moments of her life as a cashier under Tom Reynolds' management. She told the truth, down to every painful detail: the slurs, the contemptuous looks, and the crushing helplessness she felt day after day. Then, Jasmine spoke of the turning point, the moment her life changed forever, when CEO William Bradley stepped in to defend her. She made it clear that his courage, transparency, and unwavering resolve gave her the strength to confront her past wounds and restore her faith in herself and those around her. Her heartfelt words moved everyone in the studio to tears. As the interview wrapped up, the host looked her in the eye and said with genuine awe, "Your story has truly inspired us all, Jasmine. You prove that anyone can overcome pain and emerge stronger." Jasmine returned his smile softly. "I hope my story helps others realize that, although the world can be cruel, there are always people willing to stand up for justice and fairness. We are never truly alone. as long as we dare to speak out. While Jasmine was becoming a new icon of strength and resilience, William Bradley quietly continued his oversight. Though his actions in Atlanta had made headlines, he maintained his covert visits to other Freshway Markets locations, ensuring the company's anti-discrimination and equality policies were being rigorously upheld. On some days he posed as an ordinary middle-aged man, quietly observing staff and customers in stores from Chicago to Houston to Los Angeles. He listened and watched, determined that nothing like the Tom Reynolds incident would ever happen again. One late evening, after a secret trip to the New York store, William returned to his hotel room and checked his phone. Notifications flooded in. Social media posts praising Freshway Market's fight against injustice and racial bias. Among thousands of messages, one in particular brought a relieved smile to his face. "Mr. Bradley, I used to work at Freshway Markets a few years ago. I saw so many negative things and no one dared speak up. Thanks to Jasmine Bennett's story and your actions, I've regained faith in justice and humanity. Thank you for standing up for what's right." William set his phone down gently, the weight of his responsibility clearer than ever. But he knew that stories like Jasmine's and the positive changes he witnessed daily were what would keep him from ever giving up. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Jasmine Bennett wrapped up another busy day. As she stepped out of the store into the brilliant sunset, she smiled softly to herself. Her heart was filled with joy, pride, and faith in the brighter future she was helping to build. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had suffered as she once had. After that beautiful sunset, as Jasmine left the store brimming with renewed hope, William Bradley realized that the journey he began at the Freshway Markets in Atlanta had taught him far more than he ever imagined. In the days that followed, William reflected deeply on everything he'd witnessed. The helplessness and pain in Jasmine's eyes, Tom Reynolds's vicious slurs, and the courage of those employees who dared to speak out. All of it lingered vividly in his mind. He came to understand that some things matter far more than profit, sales figures, or quarterly performance. The dignity of every person, their self-respect, and their sense of worth. These are values that can never be sacrificed or taken lightly, for they form the bedrock of any organization that seeks to endure and grow sustainably. With that in mind, William decided to convene a special conference, gathering every leader and employee across the entire Freshway Market system. The event was held in a grand hall in downtown Atlanta, drawing not only company insiders but also press, media, and community members. On the morning of the conference, thousands of employees poured in from all over. They assembled before the main stage, their eyes fixed on William Bradley, who stood there with a solemn yet heartfelt bearing. William stepped up to the podium, meeting the gaze of each person in the audience. His voice rang out clear and warm. "Today, we are here not merely to review a painful incident, but to reaffirm the true values that Freshway Market stands for. I want to share one crucial principle. Profit is necessary, but it must never come at the expense of anyone's dignity or self-respect." He paused, letting his words sink in as he scanned the silent faces before him, then continued. "What happened at our Atlanta store with Jasmine Bennett, and the wrongful actions taken by Tom Reynolds, serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of ethics and social responsibility. Let me be clear, Freshway Markets will never tolerate injustice or discrimination in any form." A thunderous round of applause rose from the crowd. William waited until it died down before speaking again, his tone resolute. "Our core value is respect, creating an environment where every individual is judged not by skin color or background, but by their character, compassion, and effort. Starting today, let us commit to making Freshway Markets a place we can all be proud to be part of." The applause grew even louder, the entire hall vibrating with shared conviction. Then William glanced toward the wings of the stage and beckoned Jasmine forward. She walked up to the podium slowly, transformed from the timid, trembling woman she once was into someone radiating calm confidence and quiet strength. Pride shone in her eyes as she faced her colleagues and the assembled audience. Taking a deep breath, she spoke with genuine emotion. "You probably know my story, the hardships I endured and the wounds I carried. But today, I stand here not to dwell on pain, but to speak of change, of faith, and of hope." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "Freshway Markets gave me the chance to stand up, not just for myself, but for everyone who's experienced injustice. And Mr. Bradley showed me that self-respect and human dignity are priceless possessions no one can ever take away." She paused, her eyes misting as she looked out at the audience, many of whom wore tears. "Today, I am proud to be part of the change we are making together. I hope my story inspires those who have suffered and reminds everyone that we each deserve respect, kindness, and fair treatment." Jasmine concluded with a radiant, sincere smile. The applause that followed was sustained and heartfelt. In that moment, she became a powerful symbol of courage, belief in justice, and positive transformation within Freshway Markets. Behind her, William sat quietly, a satisfied smile on his face as he watched Jasmine's confident presence before her peers. He knew he had done the right thing, and that the greatest value his company could cultivate lay in people like Jasmine, those who honor themselves, stand up for what's right, and help make the world better. When the conference ended, employees filed out one by one, hearts full of emotion and renewed purpose. William remained seated for a long while, gazing at the now empty stage. In his mind, he felt peace and profound pride, knowing that the journey he began in that Atlanta store had become a powerful inspiration, spreading throughout Freshway Markets. He was certain that, from this day forward, respect and fairness would always come first, and would never be compromised or forgotten again. We've just shared the deeply meaningful story of William Bradley and Jasmine Bennett, one of bravery, justice, and the true value of human dignity. No matter who we are, where we come from, or the color of our skin, each of us deserves respect and fair treatment. Have you ever witnessed or experienced injustice or discrimination like Jasmine did? If so, how would you have responded? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this story inspiring, please hit like, share it to spread its message, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.